Okay, and welcome back to our second session of conference number 4, Sustain the Land. This is the Shout Learning Conference, and you're in the right place for our session on tigers on the brink of extinction. What will help save them? We're going to find out from our special guests, who I will introduce in just a moment. But we'd love for you to introduce yourselves to us. We have a number of new people joining us for this session, and several of you are back. So we are very glad to have you. I'd like to acknowledge a few groups that are with us today. First of all, our partners that are convening the conference. Of course, the Smithsonian, Microsoft Partners in Learning, and Taking It Global, all of whom have contributed to making this event and the whole Shout project possible. And you'll start to see different avenues for continuing this dialogue that I'll bring up at the end, including teachers' guides and a global classroom and a whole array of ways to keep the conversation going and to pick up on some challenges that might be posed to you throughout the day today. Speaking of the day today, as you know, we just talked about North American forests and the past and the present and the future, and we'll be turning our attention now to tigers. And then we have a special tree banding update that will happen in between our second and third sessions, and we'll be back to do the tree banding update again later on after our third session today. So if you're not part of that citizen science project, we hope you'll check the schedule page again and see if you can join us at those times. And if you are a part of that project, we hope you'll tune in to see what the latest is, and we'll give you more information on that as we go along today. A couple of quick things I wanted to point out. Many of you are discovering that there are ways to chat here in the room, and we hope you'll use that area on the left to send in both questions and comments and resources as we go along. By the way, among the people participating here are Dara and Cheryl, who are in Belfast, North Ireland, and they are conversation leaders at their respective sites, and some of you may be leading conversations with students or colleagues wherever you are today, and we've got people from dozens and dozens of countries on almost every continent who are part of the Shout project. So you can get to know them in the introductions area or right here in the chat as the session goes along today. By the way, we are curious how many people are joining you from your site right now. We know that some of you, many of you, are joining in groups. So if you can just estimate the number of people who are around you right now, we would love to get a feel for that. And you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your group over in the chat area on the left side of the screen. Excellent. Good. Well, thank you very much for that. A lot of groups, a lot of classrooms as well. So that's excellent. But if you're logged in on your own, you're not alone. You're with all of us today. And one final note about the interface is we are closed captioning the event. So you will see the captions appearing there in real time at the bottom of the screen. And we hope that is useful. We thank our friends at WGBH for their great job capturing our speedy words as we speak them here today. And you can also keep up on Twitter at Shout Learning and on Facebook at Shout Learning. And we would love to see your posts and your reflections there as we go along. Excellent. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead now, and it gives me great pleasure to turn the floor over to our speakers today. They are Marshall Jones and Anna Tinsler. Marshall is a senior conservation advisor at the Smithsonian Biology Institute, and Anna is the program specialist for the Global Tiger Initiative at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute. And throughout the day today, we'll be checking in with Chris, our illustrator, who's going to give us his take on visually capturing what we hear from Anna and Marshall. So I'll turn it over to them to kick things off.
Okay, thanks so much. It's a great pleasure for us to be with you today and be part of the Shout series. And we're going to talk about tigers, their situation in the world today, and what all of us together can do to help save them from extinction. The tiger is really one of the most iconic species, iconic meaning it's a species that people recognize, not just the people who live with tigers in 13 countries in Asia today, but also people all over the globe, people in other Asian countries which used to have tigers and unfortunately do not anymore, and also people North America, Europe, Africa, Australia, wherever you go, people can identify with South America and recognize tigers as sort of an emblematic species for wild nature and conservation of living things on the earth. They've inspired art, poetry, music, religion, and they're also emblematic of the biodiversity of the planet that we all want to save. Tigers, unfortunately, also are not doing well today. And in the last 100 years, tigers have probably gone down to 100,000 or so, now down to perhaps only 3,200. And maybe a few more, maybe a few less, but a huge decrease in just 100 years. And unfortunately, the pace of that decrease has increased. They're disappearing faster than they were 10 or 20 years ago. And so the tiger range countries, working individually, have tried hard. They vary in their capabilities and they need assistance. And those countries have come together with a coalition to form the Global Tiger Initiative. The Global Tiger Initiative was first announced at a ceremony at the Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington, D.C., where the World Bank, the National Zoo, and our Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute, which, by the way, is not at the zoo. We're located about 75 miles away in Front Royal, Virginia, but we're part of the National Zoo and share scientists and programs. So the World Bank, Smithsonian through the National Zoo and the Conservation Biology Institute, and many other partners, conservation organizations like the World Wildlife Fund and the Wildlife Conservation Society, and many more, too many for me to name here, joining with tiger range countries to launch this Global Tiger Initiative. And what we want to talk about today is why this initiative was needed and what we think that people everywhere can do to help support the Asian tiger range countries in their effort to restore tigers to a healthy status in the wild.
And Marshall, we're asking people, and in fact, maybe this list is a good place to for people to pause here. I'm going to move this poll up. Are you participating today from a country with tigers in Asia? And we can see here on Marshall's slide a list of those 13 tiger range countries. And at this point, it doesn't look like we have anyone represented from any of those countries live with us, although I do know we have people participating in Shout from several of those countries. All right, back to you.
Okay, thanks. Well, we'll keep a watch and see if anyone does log in from one of those countries. But that's everyone can see on their computer screen the list. These are the 13 countries where tigers occur today. They occurred in more countries in the past, and in a few minutes on, I was going to talk about each of the remaining subspecies of tigers and where they occur. What I want to do now is just give a picture of the area that tigers originally occurred in. And let me, first of all, we're talking right from here in the greater Washington, D.C. area, we'd say. Tigers, of course, never occurred in North or South America, although we have mountain lions in both of those. And in Latin America, we also have jaguars. We have lions that occur in Africa, and lions at one time also got into Europe and at least the Middle East and parts of Asia, although they're only in sub-Saharan Africa today. We have snow leopards, which occur in the high mountain region of the Himalayas here. We have leopards. Leopards occur in Africa and Asia in a huge area that I'm just trying to, well, maybe not quite that far north, but much of Africa and across into Asia, we have leopards. The tiger originally occurred in an area which encompassed much of Asia, the southern half of Asia, let's say, and then way up into Siberia in Russia. And this circle sort of encompasses where tigers occur now in South and Southeast Asia. And then this other circle goes up to the area where tigers occur in the eastern part of Russia and down a little bit into China and, at least in the past, in Korea. Now we're going to go to the next slide here, and this is a view of Asia. The darker tan area, that's an area where there are no tigers. The light-colored area, here, let me get my little cursor back. This light-colored area is where tigers originally occurred but have disappeared. In addition, there's some areas that are off to the west of this map, all the way to Turkey, where tigers at one time occurred. They don't show on this particular map. So we're starting here in India. They occur all the way down. For some reason, this right here, the cursor is now on Sri Lanka, a large island off the coast of southeastern India. For some reason, tigers never made it to Sri Lanka, even though Sri Lanka does have leopards and it has Asian elephants. So no tigers ever occurred there, but they did come all the way up, came around here through Nepal and Bhutan, the edge of the Himalayas, down through here into Bangladesh, moving to the east into what was Burma, now Myanmar, Thailand, right down here to the south through Malaysia, all the way to Indonesia, Sumatra, and at one time further out to Bali, Indonesia. And then they also occur down through here, through Laos, Cambodia, through Vietnam, and up at one time into China. Then if you look here in the corner, this little square that I'm going right here, this little square is actually the northern area. It would be way up here if it was in to scale on this map. This is an inset that shows where tigers now occur in far eastern Russia and Siberia. So this huge area, which tigers originally occupied, encompasses a tremendous number of different kinds of habitats, different species that the tigers would eat. Anna's going to talk in a minute about what those different habitats are, what kinds of animals tigers prey on, what they need for their survival. The amazing thing about tigers is the incredible scope of their original range. They went from very cold areas in northern Russia to the hottest jungles in Southeast Asia to dry forest areas in India. So tigers clearly had a tremendous capacity to adapt to the environment, to live in many different places, to experience and prosper in all different kinds of climates, to eat a wide variety of different foods, although they prefer certain animals that Anna will talk about. So the tigers didn't have any issue with survival until humans came and started changing the landscape and also directly preying on tigers. They're one of the most amazing species on Earth, and it is our goal, working with the World Bank and many conservation organizations, and especially the tiger range countries themselves, the governments, the people, conservation organizations within those countries, all of us joined together in this last best hope to save tigers from extinction, to take action before it's too late. One last thing. We're talking here about tigers in the wild. Now, there are tigers in captivity, and we have a lot of tigers. We have several thousand tigers in the United States in captivity. There are tigers in other countries in captivity. Those tigers mostly will never go back to the wild. They're not adapted. You can't just take a tiger from a cage and release it back into the wild. So our focus is keeping wild tigers in their wild habitats. And to do that, we've all got to work together, and that's what the Global Tiger Initiative is all about. And so with that, I would like to now turn things over to Anna, who's going to talk about tigers, where they occur, what they eat, their biology.
Okay, thank you very much, Marshall. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here today and talk to all of you about about tigers. I'm going to talk about their habitat, the different subspecies, the prey that they eat, and Marshall was able to very broadly touch on a lot of these topics. So I think we'll just be able to go more into detail about these. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. So the tiger is the largest member of the cat family. Its closest relative is the lion, but the lion occurs in Africa, and the tiger primarily occurs in Asia, as Marshall highlighted. The tiger is a true carnivore. Its diet consists solely of meat. It's powerfully built, and like the lion, is able to bring down prey much larger than a tiger is. There are 9 classified subspecies of tiger. And I'm going to go right now more into detail about the subspecies and which ones are extinct and which ones are still existing in the wild today. The first one is the Amour tiger, which is also known widely as the Siberian tiger. It's primarily found in Russia's far east and in northeastern China. So you can see down on each slide of the subspecies, I've included a map on the far right corner. So you can see the green area. I know the map is a little bit small, but the green area is where the tigers are currently residing, the Amour tiger. So that is far eastern Russia and northeastern China. The Amour tiger is the largest of all the subspecies. It can get up to 500 plus pounds, and it has one of the largest undivided tiger populations in the world because this region in far eastern Russia and northern China is more or less a continuous range rather than little pockets like you'll find in Eastern Asia.
And Anna, this is Jonathan here. A couple of questions coming in. I'm wondering if it's a good time to maybe address one or two of them.
Sure.
One of them is from a student in Jolie Brock's class in Texas. You'll be meeting Jolie later today during the tree banding update. She says one of her students wants to know how many tigers are there in the wild.
Okay, well, right now we have an estimate, as Marshall mentioned at the beginning. It's between 3,000 to 3,200. The majority of the tigers, of wild tigers, are found primarily in India, but there are also large populations in Thailand and other countries of Southeast Asia and South Asia. Marshall, I'm not sure if you want to expand a little bit more on tiger population and how the numbers are estimated.
Well, there have been various means used to determine or estimate the number of tigers. One of them is pug marks. You can go and find the tiger tracks and try to identify, if you can even identify individuals, you might be able to see large tracks with a couple of small sets of tracks with it. That probably tells you that's a female with two cubs. But that's not a really highly accurate means, and it gets pretty hard sometimes to distinguish a small tiger from a leopard and to know for sure how many individuals. New methods include using camera traps. Those are cameras that are set out in the wild that automatically take pictures of animals as they walk by. And with that, you can start to even identify individual tigers because every tiger stripe pattern is unique. And India just recently announced a new population estimate for the country. It's still a pretty complicated process, and the accuracy of any population estimate is only as good as all the methods that you use. And India is still working on refining that for the future. There's also a method where you actually can take, if you can find the poop from animals, you can even, I sometimes identify through DNA analysis, start to identify individuals. And you can use dogs to help you find what's called scat. That's the feces from the animal, the tiger poop. And if you can actually identify this from a tiger, not a leopard, you can build up a database over time and maybe even recognize individuals. All of these methods, though, they vary a lot in how accurate they are depending on the training of the people doing it, as well as the conditions that they're working in. And so we can say about 3,200 tigers, but of course we can't say exactly. Our hope is that we can turn things around and double that number for the future, and we'll talk later about some of the ways that we hope that can happen.
Great. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, Anna. And while you've been answering that question, you can see Chris is definitely capturing some of those methods as part of the drawing too. We'll check back in with Chris, but I'm going to let Anna keep going.
Actually, Jonathan, I think this would be a great time to pull up the poll.
Sure.
Excuse me, where we ask about how many of the 9 subspecies, how many of them are extinct. I'd like to get an idea of the knowledge people have of how many tigers are.
And there we go. We've got that poll up, and let's let people vote. And I'll go ahead and bring up the results in just a few seconds, so you're not influenced by your neighbors across the world here. Although It does look like people, about half of our audience thinks it's about 3, although that number has just split with 5. So there you have it. It's a neck and neck.
All right. All right. Well, it's not too far off. 3 of the subspecies are unfortunately extinct, and I'm going to continue to go on sort of through all the existing subspecies, and I have a slide that shows images of the 3 that are extinct at the very end. So the next subspecies I'd like to talk about is the Bengal tiger. It is the most numerous of all the subspecies, and it's found primarily in India, but also Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. The males are they're not as big as the Siberian tiger, so they're between 400 to 500 pounds. And they have a very wide range of habitats. So you can go from, as Marshall mentioned earlier, grasslands to subtropical and tropical rainforest, scrub forest, wet and dried deciduous forest, and mangroves, which are primarily found in Bangladesh and the Sundarbans, and also in India in the Sundarbans. It's the border between Bangladesh and India. The Indo-Chinese tiger is its scientific name, actually, this little interesting fact, is Panthera tigris corbetti, and it's also called Corbett's tiger after Jim Corbett, who was an avid hunter and conservationist from the early 1900s. It's a little interesting, I think, fact about some of the scientific names are connected to people who were, had big influences in tigers and the history of their conservation. The Indo-Chinese tiger is widely dispersed through Thailand, Myanmar, southern China, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. And their preferred habitats sort of a mountainous, hilly regions. They prefer mountains and hills. So, and I'd like to also point out that several of these images were captured through camera traps. So they're just stationary cameras that are put in forests or different areas where tigers can be found, and nobody was there, so the tiger is essentially being spied on. And you'll see that I believe definitely the night one, is a camera trap image. The Malayan tiger is very interesting. It was only identified as being a separate subspecies from the Indo-Chinese tiger in 2004. It's only found in the Malay Peninsula, which I'm going to take, and also the southern tip of Thailand. And it's actually the 3rd largest subspecies population behind the Bengal tiger and the Indo-Chinese tiger. And it's the smallest of the mainland tiger subspecies. Now, I think this would also be a good time to bring up another question, which I think we've already touched on, but I'd like to see what the audience thinks about what continent the tigers can be found, where they can be found.
And while people vote on, while people vote on this one, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick question here from Ashcroft, British Columbia. How can you tell the age of a tiger, and how long do they live for? Ooh, I think we have you on mute.
Well, it looks like, Jonathan, maybe most of the votes are in, and we do have a majority of people participating who think tigers are found in Asia, though we do have over 40% people who think maybe they're in both Africa and Asia, and I have to say that part is not correct. Tigers never occurred in Africa. Lions are the ones that occurred in both Africa and Asia at one time. Although lions, and there still are some lions, in fact, remaining in India. I didn't mention that, a small population. Tigers only in Asia, but a huge area of Asia going from high mountains and very cold latitudes all the way down to the tropics. So thanks for everybody for participating in that.
And just real quick, the question that came in regarding how you can tell the age of a tiger, what would the answer to that be?
Of course, you can look at their size. You can tell the young ones, and you can tell females from males. Male tigers are much larger than females. A really large male tiger can weigh, let's put this in kilos, 200 kilos, over 400 pounds. A female would be probably at most maybe two-thirds of the size of a male. In terms of age, that's a lot more complicated. If you don't know the history of the animal, and if you can't go and actually look, for example, in its teeth can tell you a lot about animals, but obviously not too many people who've walked away from looking at a living tiger's teeth unless they had tranquilized that tiger somehow and were working with it. And that is done to put radio collars on tigers as a way of tracking their movements. With the tranquilizer gun, you have to get close enough. You have to be very careful to adjust the right dose. Then you can put the tiger to sleep temporarily, and you can look at its mouth. And just like with your cat or your dog, a vet can look in their mouth and get an approximate age. But you can't know for sure if you don't know the history of that tiger. You can probably look at other parts of their body and see, do they have scars? How long have they been experiencing things in the wild? But without actually tranquilizing a tiger and working with it directly, I don't think there's a real good way to tell the age of an adult tiger just by looking at it at a distance with your binoculars or even with your eyes.
Great. Thank you, Marshall.
And I wanted to actually answer a question that I saw up here on the Q&A link from Cynthia in Colorado, I believe, or Cheryl. I'm sorry, it was Cheryl in Colorado. She said her student wanted to know why humans would kill tigers. And I just want to let you know, Marshall is going to really go into depth about that and the threats to tigers later on in the presentation. So we'll definitely be able to address your question. I think it was asked a few times. I'm going to move on here and kind of go through the rest of the subspecies. The South China tiger, which is the slide that's up now, is the most critically endangered tiger, and it's found in central and eastern China. It's been on the 10 most endangered animals. It is on the 10 most endangered animal list in the world. The last sighting is confirmed in 1983, but there said that there are still South China tigers in central and eastern China. In 1977, in order to help protect the wild South China tigers, the Chinese government banned killing of wild tigers. And so we're hoping that has helped preserve what was left of the population, but it's not, an estimate isn't sort of confirmed because there haven't been very many, if any, sightings in several years. The Sumatran tiger is only found on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. It is also critically endangered, and it is the smallest of the subspecies. And this is because they've adapted to the dense forests of the island, and also to their prey are also smaller. So I think that inherently makes the tiger end up being smaller because of its habitat, its prey. Now we're moving on to the three extinct subspecies that I mentioned before. That is the Bali Tiger, which was confirmed to go extinct in the 1930s. The middle one with the picture on the right, this one right here, is the Caspian Tiger, which is said to go extinct in the 1950s. And then the last one, just the Javan Tiger, which was said to go extinct in the 1980s, although there have said to have been sightings in the 90s. So they're extinct, but people might think they've seen them around. The next slide, I want to talk about what tigers need to survive. It's pretty basic, but it's essential that they have space. If there's less prey available for them to eat, they need more space in order to find more prey to sustain themselves. A habitat without prey, essentially, is not a tiger habitat. So they need to be able to get a large kill every 7 to 8 days, basically every week. Another thing a tiger really needs is water. Other than the jaguar, tigers are the only big cats that really enjoy swimming and that are strong swimmers. They're found often bathing in cool rivers or ponds to get away from the heat. And they're such strong swimmers that they can even carry prey through the water, which I think is a pretty amazing feat. Another essential part of a tiger's habitat is cover. They're pretty elusive animals. Sometimes, if you're out in a tiger reserve, it is said that a tiger will see you 7, 8, 9 times before you even see it once. And this is because they part of their hunting is to stalk their prey. And so if they're easily seen, they obviously won't be able to sneak up on their prey and get them. Tigers also give birth in dense cover or in caves. It's another reason cover is essential. And they also like to escape the sun and the heat in the more hot climates. Let's see. So tigers are, in a difficult position. Their habitat is becoming increasingly fragmented. And this isn't just difficult for tigers, it's also difficult for people who live close to protected areas or to tiger reserves because they're competing for resources such as water or land. I have 2 pictures on the right here, and one of them, they're both from India and central India. And the top picture is, you see there's a little road and some concrete buildings on either side. They're brightly colored. That's actually a picture of a village that was relocated from the core of a tiger protected area. So these people were living in the sort of most important part of a tiger habitat, and in collaboration with the government, the community was relocated into the buffer zone. So that way the tigers would be able to live more harmoniously with people, and people would be less in danger of having encounters with tigers. Examples of things that happen, cattle are often become prey of tigers, and they're easy to get, much easier than, let's say, wild prey. And so a lot of times the communities have retaliation killings, and cattle are important to them, either to their livelihood or as religious symbols. Also, water. Let's say there's not enough water outside of the protected area. Many humans are going into the protected areas to get these resources, and sometimes come across tigers and can be injured. So I think this highlights the importance of connectivity. Tigers need space. They need space to have an abundance of prey. And if instead of having islands of habitat, if they have a longer range of area where they can go, they will be able to thrive, as well as other wildlife such as elephants, which can be found in the same habitats as tigers. And I'm not sure, Marshall, did you want to add anything about connectivity?
Well, actually, Anna, I'm looking right now at some really interesting questions that have been coming in from students and others who are participating in this. One was, how many teeth a tiger have? And I'm going to give a hint. Tigers have the same number of teeth as a domestic cat. And most cats, I'm not sure if every single one, but most cats have the same basic arrangements of teeth. And by the way, they have the same basic body plan. Once you've seen one cat, you know what cats look like. So, Jonathan, maybe that's a question we could put out to the group. How many teeth do they think?
There it is. Let's take Laura's question, and we have some guesses already coming in. And
Okay.
Yeah.
There also was, while we're doing that, maybe I can just say a word, because there was a really good question from someone about, can a tranquilizer gun kill a tiger? And the answer is yes. And that's why using tranquilizers is it's a science, but it's also an art. You have to be so careful. You have to get the dose of the drug administered just right. You have to take into account, if you're chasing a tiger or any other animal, they're stressed. Their heart is beating much faster than normal. They're breathing hard. They have a big shot of adrenaline. That's the stress hormone that your body releases when you're in a situation where you need to fight or flee. The tigers are scared. And so that can mean that you have to watch out very carefully for adverse reactions to the drug. So when a tiger or any other animal is shot with a tranquilizer, you need to have veterinarians there. You need to cover their eyes and their face so that they don't get sun going directly into and damaging the inner parts of their eye, their retina. You've got to be really careful. And then at the end, usually an antidote drug is administered, and then, you got to get out of the way, because sometimes animals will come back very quickly from that. There are a wide range of different drugs that are used in different situations. Some are more risky than others, but it is something that biologists don't like to tranquilize animals too much just because of that, because it does pose risks. And it certainly can happen that you get a reaction that nobody ever wants to see, and animals can even die from that. So it's got to be done with the greatest of care by people who are really skillful and practiced at doing it. Great question. Okay.
And Marshall,
so
we're seeing 25, 30, 40 teeth. Those are some of the guesses we're seeing.
Okay. Well, that's a good range. And maybe we'll go ahead and just give the answer. All cats that I know of have 30 teeth. Lions have the same as tigers, leopards, and domestic cats. Domestic dogs have 42 teeth. They have more teeth. And if you think about their different diet, there's actually a reason for that. Cats are specialists in eating meat. They have the great big teeth, the canines that you see, the big long, almost like daggers. They have little incisors in between those canines that can shear the meat, and then they have teeth in the back, specialized teeth, carnassial teeth, that are actually made to tear off big chunks of meat. But if you watch even your cat or your cat doesn't do much chewing. They just tear the stuff off and then they swallow it, and the digestion is mostly done with their stomach. They don't have molars to grind things up. Dogs, on the other hand, have a more varied diet, can eat some vegetable matter, and some foxes and other members of the dog family eat a lot of vegetable matter. So they have to be able to chew things up in their mouth first. So they have more teeth to do that, whereas the tigers are, like other cats, very specialized at eating meat, and so they can have a smaller number of teeth that are really made just for that purpose. So I see there are more great questions coming in here. I guess, Jonathan, we should go on with the program. But I really like to see people firing these questions in.
These are great.
We can answer some more.
You bet. We'll sneak
later.
them in, and we'll save some time at the end as well.
Okay. I actually think this would be a great time to bring up the poll of what habitats do tigers not live in. Because I'm going to go in and explain a little bit more in detail and show you guys images of the habitats for the tigers. Oh, that might be giving away a little answer. Let's see.
People are saying deserts. Would they be right?
Yes, they would be right. Now, tigers do live in very hot, dry climates as well, like in central India. But I'm thinking like the sandy-type deserts. Don't think there are very many tigers there. So the first habitat I'd like to talk about is the wetlands, mangrove swamps. These are primarily found in the Sundarbans I mentioned before, in India and in Bangladesh. The next one would be tall grasslands. You can find these in northern and central India, but also parts of Nepal. And you'll see there's many, many cheetal deer, which is one of the tiger's main prey. And they're kind of small in this image, but they're there, lots of them. Tigers also live in dry deciduous forests that can be found in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and also in several countries throughout Southeast Asia, including Thailand. In dense forest habitats, like I mentioned with the Sumatran tiger, many Southeast Asian countries have these types of habitats. And this picture in particular was taken in Hoi Kai Keng Wildlife Sanctuary in Thailand's Western Forest Complex. And another one, which I think is a pretty exciting place where tigers live, is in the Himalayas at very high altitudes. The picture on the left was taken in 2008 at 4,200 meters above sea level by Bhutanese government officials. And the one on the right is from a special BBC did about tigers living in Bhutan's Himalayas. So I think it's pretty spectacular that they can live in such a wide range of habitat.
By the way, when you were showing a couple of slides back, there was the tiger that looked like it had a collar. And
yep. Let's see. Was this one right here, right?
Yes.
That is a satellite radio collar. Many tigers are collared for scientific research and also to keep numbers, to do better estimations, and to follow their sort of habitat and range patterns. And so this was lucky. We were lucky enough to capture here an image of I believe this is in India. Yes, this is in India. And in Marshall's last trip to India, they captured this image of this collared tiger.
Great.
They used to use different types of radio telemetry. I believe now the most commonly used collars are satellite collars. Let's see. Okay. Tigers also live, as I mentioned before, in far eastern Russia, and they used to thrive in Siberia also, which is large evergreen forested habitat with short summers and very, very long cold winters. So again, it shows the extremes of tigers, extreme different habitats and temperatures that tigers can thrive in. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail now about the reproductive process of the tiger. Tigers can mate throughout the year, and they generally have between 2 to 3 cubs about every 2.5 years, and that's with sort of ideal conditions, habitat, prey, and all the things that I mentioned before that they need to survive. They're born in dense vegetation or in caves, and this is to protect the cubs and the mother during this very fragile time. Cubs stay in the den for 3 months, and the mother rarely leaves them for the first few months. She keeps her home range, shrinks down possibly about a third of the size, so she doesn't leave the cubs alone too long. She does this while she's hunting. She goes as quickly as she can and comes back with food for them. Or the cubs nurse until they're 6 months old, and after that, after the canines come in, they're able to start eating meat. They learn to hunt from their mother. They cannot hunt on their own probably until about 18 to 2 years old, 18 months to 2 years old, not 18 years old. And at 2 years old, cubs disperse. Now, female cubs often take part of their mother's range or stay close to their mother's range and often share their mother's range, and males must travel farther to establish their own range in a new territory. So there's a lot of competition between males, especially in areas of high pressure where there's a lot of human influence or not enough habitat or space for them to go. Now, males are generally often larger than females. I mean, they are larger than females, depending on, obviously, the age. Females may be larger. But a good way to tell if you're in the forest, a lot of biologists use this technique. The males have a wider forepaw than the females. So when scientists are in the field and they see their prints, they can figure out the sex based on the tiger tracks. So tiger prey, what they eat are deer. I have a few pictures here. On the left, we have wild boar, which is another prey that tigers enjoy. And on the right, we have a water buffalo. Now below, you get to see all the different prey. This isn't all of them, but this is a good selection of the prey that tigers eat. And the central one is a guar. It's a very, very large cow-like animal, but it's much, much bigger. And guar, I think, is the correct pronunciation. And so those are all the types of animals tigers like to eat. And I think at this point, we can go ahead and pass it over to Marshall, and he can add on all the things I just went through. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. I think you covered things terrifically there. There's a lot more that we could say, but we do want to leave some time for questions at the end. So I want to shift to the topic that I've seen a couple of our participants have asked. Why do people kill tigers? Why are tigers endangered? And we have highlighted some issues. Anna talked about the issue of connectivity. Big word, but basically tigers need pretty large space. Tigers don't exist in small areas. They have large home ranges. Male tigers can have home ranges that overlap with female tigers, so they have an even bigger range. There have to be enough animals within that tiger's home range to sustain them. And as Anna mentioned, an adult tiger, on average, maybe one kill a week. If they're eating larger deer, if they're eating small animals, they'd have to eat more often than that. If the tigers get more and more restricted, and if the tigers don't have corridors where they can move from one park or wildlife reserve or sanctuary to another, then the tiger populations begin to shrink. And over time, you can lose the tigers from those areas. Why are those areas getting smaller? Human activities, human population growth. Villages and settlements, of course, people have lived with tigers in Asia for thousands of years, but we have more people today than we ever had. In addition, we have roads, infrastructure, we have dams that flood habitat, we have trains, we have villages that become towns that grow into cities that are taking habitat away. So tigers certainly need to have a sustainable population of tigers needs not only national parks and protected areas, but also corridors between them to connect them. In addition, however, the big threat today is the direct killing of tigers. Unfortunately, there are those people who think that tigers are worth more dead than they are alive. Now, I don't believe personally that that's the case. That's really not true if you look at all the values that tigers have. But for a very poor person living on a subsistence life in Asia, a tiger skin is valuable. Tiger teeth are valuable. Tiger bones are valuable. Every part of a tiger can actually be sold in the black market. Now, the trade in tigers is illegal within virtually every country, and it certainly is illegal between countries. There's an international convention, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, that controls the trade in all sorts of endangered species, and tigers are one of the key species that this is called CITES. CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, is focused on. Nevertheless, if you go to Asia, you can see the kind of things that you see in this slide. Here is a marketplace where you see not only parts of big cats, you can see skins, claws, bones, but also parts of bears, both bear paws, gallbladders, and primates and other species. You can see here in this center picture confiscated items. There are all sorts of medicines which at least say that they contain tiger parts, ground up tiger bone, for example. The fact is that in China, which is the largest country that uses traditional Asian medicines, the Chinese law and the official book, it's called a pharmacopoeia, that's the list of all the ingredients that go into particular drugs. In China, they do not allow the use of tiger parts in medicines. So the traditional medicines in China do not contain tiger parts if they're legal. Unfortunately, there's a black market. And it's not just in China, it's in many places. And there are people who believe that somehow putting tiger parts into a medicine can make that medicine more effective, even if there's no evidence that that's really true. So tigers are certainly killed still for the illegal trade in Asian medicines. And then, of course, you have tiger skins. You don't see tiger skins displayed in the United States or in Europe, except in museums where they may have very old ones. It's not legal to trade in tiger skins in almost anywhere. Nevertheless, there are people who see a tiger skin as an object of beauty and status, and so there still is a demand for tiger skins and the other parts. So tigers are being killed every day for the illegal trade. Tigers, however, are not the only species at risk from this. And this slide shows you some of the markets within Asia where wildlife moves illegally. Now, Asian countries have gotten together, both under CITES, the International Convention on Trade in Endangered Species that I mentioned, but also working individually and in smaller groups. There's an association of Southeast Asian nations called ASEAN, and it has a wildlife enforcement network where they are working together to try to stop the illegal trade in wildlife. The same is now being started in South Asia. That's India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, those countries. Nevertheless, this illegal wildlife trade goes on, and it's not just a trade in tigers, and it's not just in Asia. This slide right here shows you an Asian sloth bear. We have living sloth bears at the Smithsonian's National Zoo here in Washington, D.C., but there also is a demand for sloth bears performing bears in some countries in Asia. There certainly is poaching and illegal trade in Asian elephants, also African elephants for their ivory. And then in addition, elephants are killed because, like tigers, elephants can get into conflict with people. Rhinos are tremendously at risk. And here you see, this is actually a black rhino from southern Africa, from Zimbabwe. And if you'll see, this rhino's had its horns removed. That was done not by poachers. The poachers would have killed the animal. This animal was shot, but the horns were removed by biologists and conservationists to protect it so that it wouldn't have horns that would lead a poacher to try to kill it. This one was recovering. You see, it's a female with a baby. And then here's a really interesting animal, a pangolin. It's sort of a unique Asian animal, and it's scaly. And both the scales and the parts of the animal are in demand. The scales to make products out of, and then parts of it are used in traditional Asian medicines. Lots of animals that are highly in trade and are endangered by that trade. So what are we doing to try to save tigers from extinction before it's too late? The Global Tiger Initiative is the effort that I mentioned at the beginning, where the Asian tiger range countries have come together with partners. Those partners include the Smithsonian, includes the World Bank, which has really been one of the impetuses for doing this and has helped pay for and convene gatherings of all the countries, and lots of conservation organizations. And we have, at the end of this presentation, some links to some of those conservation organizations that are partners in this Global Tiger Initiative. All of these partners, the 13 countries, and all the conservation groups got together in St. Petersburg, Russia last November at a Tiger Summit that was called by Prime Minister Vladimir Putin of Russia. He hosted this, and he spoke very eloquently about the need for tiger conservation. He had the Premier of China, Wen Jiabao, and the leaders of a number of other Asian countries there with him. And a whole year of work, or more than a year, went into the announcement at this meeting in Russia of a global tiger recovery program. It's a document. I'm holding a copy of it in my hand right now, and anybody can go to the Global Tiger Initiative website and get a copy of it online if you want to see it. But it's about a 60-page document that lays out, here's what we need to do to save tigers from extinction and, in fact, double their population by 2022. And it goes through all the kinds of actions that are needed. It was based on individual plans. It was plans done by each tiger range country. What does India need, which may be a little different than what Thailand needs, which may be a little different than what Cambodia and Laos need. But there are some common threads. Countries need help. They need assistance. They also need to take responsibility and be able to make their own decisions about what's most important. But in doing that, they need assistance from the outside. And so the Global Tiger Recovery Program outlines what we're going to do to try to save tigers from extinction. And let me go back just a second here, because the Smithsonian's part of that is capacity building. We're going to work with tiger range countries throughout Asia to help them improve their ability to manage their protected areas, working with the staff of the protected areas, developing learning programs which will give training courses. Anna, by the way, participated in a training course in Thailand in January. We're going to be doing more of these, and then in addition, making these materials available to people in all of the tiger range countries, translated into their local languages to help them do a better job. We'll also work at helping to educate higher-level government leaders about the value of tigers, because, as I said, the actual value of a tiger is much greater. A living tiger, in fact, is worth much more than a tiger that has been killed. But you have to take into account all of the tourism benefits, all the benefits from the tiger habitat, stores carbon. We all hear about climate change. Forests with tigers also pull carbon out of the atmosphere and store it. It can help combat climate change. A whole range of other values to tigers that mean we working together. Our Earth is poorer when we lose tigers. Our Earth is richer if we save them. In terms of everyone who is participating in this, there are things that you can do, being aware, being informed. If you travel overseas or any of your relatives travel overseas, make sure they know. They shouldn't be buying products from endangered species. And if there's any doubt, don't buy it. Unless you're absolutely sure that this product is legal, don't buy it. You cannot bring it into the United States if it's an endangered species product, and you don't want to contribute to the decline of species anywhere. Also, you can ask questions being an informed consumer. There are lots of areas of Asia where tiger habitats have been destroyed for logging, for palm oil. If you see the word palm, like palmitate, on a food product, that means it came from palm oil. They plant plantations of palm trees, replacing the native habitat in order to get the palm oil that's used in many food products. Now, there is an effort to have sustainable palm oil, and hopefully that can increase, but you need to ask questions. Did the palm oil that's in this product come from a sustainable source? And it's a really complicated one and would make for some really interesting classroom projects, I think, to look into this more. But all of us working together to be more informed, to ask questions and make sure that we're not contributing to the decline of tiger habitats or the killing of the tigers themselves. We have lots of other organizations that I mentioned that have been involved in tiger conservation, and we have links in this slide to some of those organizations, and these are also the organizations that from which we took some of the images that were used in this presentation. And also, we have a couple of video clips here, which I don't think we're going to have time to show, but anyone here, I believe, Jonathan, can go online, am I correct, later to the archive and click on these?
That's right.
And see these.
We'll actually play a couple of these clips as well, if we can, as we wrap up.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and take a couple of questions. And while we do, I'm going to go ahead and put Chris's drawing up because I think he's done a really great job capturing both your passion for this topic, its importance, and also what some of the things are that we can do. Let's go ahead and take this question. This one came in a little bit earlier from Gloucester, Massachusetts. Fifth graders there want to know, if the tigers were to become extinct, how would it dramatically change the food chain? What's the trickle-down effect when tigers are absent from the environment?
That's a great question, and obviously we have issues right here in the United States, in North America, with an overpopulation of white-tailed deer. There are several causes of that, but one of them is we don't have the predators anymore. Wolves and mountain lions in the eastern United States ate deer. Those predators are gone from most of the eastern U.S. today, and deer populations don't have sort of a natural control. So you could say that certainly things could happen without tigers in the same way, and the whole ecosystem can get out of balance. We need to have tigers every bit as much as we need to have the tiger's prey, the deer, wild hogs, and other species that the tigers eat.
Great. Here's and by the way, Cheryl, I think it was Cheryl who pointed out that her class remembered the point about in our first Shout conference about the deer population. So I think that is a really interesting connection. I'm going to go ahead, by the way, and bring up, I believe, one of the camera trapping videos, and we're going to play a little of it here while we continue to answer some questions. So let me go ahead and hit the play button on that. I think this is a silent film, if you will. One of the other questions that came in is related to whether tigers hibernate in colder climates.
No, tigers do not hibernate. They don't have that ability. They have to be out looking for prey. They might rest up. You get a blizzard. When the tiger couldn't find any food, it would have to have a sheltered place in a cave, maybe under a fallen tree, somewhere else where it could be sheltered. But then the tiger will be back out looking for food.
And let's see here. There's another question about tigers being tamed. You talked about them perhaps being used, or certain animals being used in entertainment industries. That's a question that's come in.
Well, of course, people can say they have tame tigers, and there are tigers used in various kinds of circus acts. One very famous case, however, recently, within the last few years, where a supposedly tamed tiger, very seriously injured a well-known performer. So the fact is, this is not a good idea. I just have to say tigers really are wild species, and what we want to see are tigers in the wild. There are tigers that are legally owned in the United States and are performing tigers in circuses and other things. But our focus within the Smithsonian, certainly, and within all our partners in the Global Tiger Initiative, is keeping tigers healthy and sustainable in the wild.
We're going to have to wrap on these last two quick questions, so you only get 15 seconds tops for each of them. And this is for either Anna or Marshall. Number one, what's each of your favorite tiger? Asked from Brooke and her class. Do you have a favorite?
I think mine would be the Amour, or the Siberian tiger. It's just because it's the biggest, and it also has a lighter shade than the rest of the subspecies. I also think it's pretty spectacular that it lives in such a cold climate. Marshall?
Well, my favorite tigers are the three subspecies that are extinct. The three subspecies that none of us will ever get a chance to see in our lifetimes. But, of course, every tiger is beautiful and amazing.
Okay, and this is the question we'll need to wrap on. And I do encourage people, by the way, to fill out the evaluation at the top left. And I'm going to give you some quick tips on what to do next with all of this great information that you've picked up here today and you've shared. So hang on for a moment. But the last question is, and this is a great one, how does it feel knowing that you're making a difference?
We can all make a difference. It's one of the reasons, of course, that working in wildlife conservation is a satisfying thing. It's not the way you get rich, but I certainly would encourage people who are interested in wildlife, whether or not you make a career of it, it's a really satisfying thing to be involved. And there are so many ways that people can volunteer, participate in local organizations, and contribute to conservation.
And with that, Marshall and Anna, we want to thank you so much for being a part of today's Shout Conference event. And we are really thrilled that you were able to tell us a little bit about your vast knowledge about tigers and what we can do in better understanding and preserving their habitats and their existence. So thank you so much. I do want to point out that we have a number of things that you can do to pick up your exploration of this topic. Don't forget that you can visit the shoutlearning.org website, which is a great place to start your exploration. On that site, you'll find links to the teacher's guide. So if you're a teacher or a parent for that matter and want to get involved in incorporating some of these challenges into your lessons and learning with the students that you work with, please check that out at shoutlearning.org. From there, you can find links to the Partners in Learning Network and to the Global Classroom on TIG Ed. So check those out as well and join the conversation there. We're also on Facebook, and we'd love to hear from you and see what kind of work you're doing, either as individuals or as classrooms, or in whatever work it is that you do. Come to Facebook or visit us on Twitter and let us know what's up there. There's some great student examples of work to inspire you, and we hope to be inspired by the work that each of you will be doing. In just under 2 hours from now, we're going to be joined by Josh Falk and a couple of the teachers who are involved in our citizen science tree banding project, and we hope you'll log in for that and learn about that project, find out how you can get involved, or if you already are involved, find out how it's going and what the early data and what the outreach is looking like in terms of who's involved and what they're up to. And you're going to meet, as I said, a couple of teachers as we do that. And then after that first update, we're going to meet Sunshine, who is going to join us live from Panama. And she is going to be talking about plants, animals, and people and how they're impacting tropical biodiversity. So if you're looking to warm up a bit, let's go ahead virtually to Panama and find out what's going there. So again, please join me in thanking Anna and Marshall for a great session. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having us. We really enjoyed it.
We sure did. Thanks to everybody.